Hmm? Ah! Oh.
Well, hey there, you. Yes, I mean you. Have you just finished watching an episode of your favorite television program, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? Are you looking for a podcast to enhance your viewing experience? Well, look no further. Welcome to Perfectly Marvelous. Join our hosts Erica, Kara, and Jade as they provide you with hours of witty banter, behind-the-scenes fun facts, and oh, so much more. Now sit back, relax, and get ready for a perfectly marvelous time. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Jade.
I'm Kara.
And I'm Erica.
And this is Perfectly Marvelous, a podcast dedicated to the award-winning Amazon Prime show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Today we are covering Season 5, Episode 4, Susan.
Written and directed by Amy Sherman Palladino.
Ooh!
Yes!
Man, I can't wait to get into it, guys. But before we do, before the discussion, we have a couple of little housekeeping things. We have a little request for you, dear listeners. So after we released our first episode, we didn't receive like a whole bunch of downloads or feedback. And you know, it's early yet. We shall have patience for people to like watch all the episodes and find us and get back to us. But we just want to request at the top here that you quickly subscribe or follow the podcast and download this bitch, because you know, if you're listening, that's the only way that you can let us know that you want us to keep going. As much as I love this show, I love doing the research, I love taking notes. Editing, I don't love editing, but you know, putting the podcast together, I would do it for free if I had all the free time in the world, happily. Yeah. But we talked about it. Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize too that you have to actually subscribe or download for us to realize that you're listening. If you're listening on, you know, a different feed, or if all you do is listen to the episode while you're connected to Wi-Fi, we can't tell that you're listening to us.
Yeah.
So pretty please.
Just for us. Just turn on downloads for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we just want to know that that you're out there. If you're out there and you're listening, just click the download button on these episodes, turn on automatic downloads for this podcast specifically, and you can help us so much by sharing the podcasts. If you are, and you know, if you're so inclined, leave us some feedback. You know, I love it. Mm-hmm. We really want to continue because we've got some exciting stuff coming up, including an interview with one of the main cast members. We're going to save it for a surprise. But yes, that is a guarantee. That interview is coming. This person suggested when I reached out to them that we should wait until we've watched all of the episodes so that they don't have to be careful of what they say. So after So after we watch that final episode and we're recording our last podcast, we are going to have a special interview with one of the main cast members, and we'll let you know who it is when we get closer to it. But yeah. So excited. So we would just want listenership to, you know, increase a little bit more. So Mrs. Maisel, lovers of the world, unite and download.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And if you're so inclined, please leave us some stars. Again, you're not rating the episode, you're rating us, all the work and the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into, you know, sharing our love of Mrs. Maisel. We didn't write it, but we love this and we love you and we appreciate all the feedback. We appreciate your participation. So yes, give us all the loves and all the stars.
Yes. And also, I wanted to mention something we didn't have a whole lot of time for last week because the podcast was so epically long, covering 3 episodes. But I want to say Perfectly Marvelous is a very proud part of the Podcastica network for over a decade now.
Yes.
I can't believe it's been that long.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Yeah, Podcastica has been around, man, providing commentary, reviews, in-depth reviews and discussion and analysis about a huge variety of shows and films. We've got so much amazing stuff. We'll talk more about Podcastica before we close out at the end here, but I just want to say, if you haven't checked out the treasure trove that is Podcastica, I highly recommend going to podcastica.com. Check out our amazing lineup of shows. We're covering like The Last of Us, Poker Face. I was on that podcast, Poker Face. We just finished that. The Mandalorian. We're now covering Beef. We got a rewatch show called Revisited Podcast, and they're doing Lost. We're covering You. Man, one
and
word
Yellow
titles
Jackets.
Yellow Jackets.
Yes.
Yellow Jackets is so good.
Oh my God, it's so good. I was just going to say, like, one-word titles are really the thing these days. I'm like,
yes, they are.
Apparently.
Beef, Lost, From, You. Are these shows? Yes, they're shows. Yes, we have an amazing catalog of shows. So check out podcastica.com. You're guaranteed to find something there that you love. If you're watching it on TV, we're probably covering it. So, all right. Housekeeping done. On to the main event. Without further ado, let's start the show. All right, tits up, bitches.
Tits up.
If you got tits in there.
Now I'm this perfectly marvelous girl in my perfectly beautiful room, and we're living together and having a marvelous time.
Okay, so let's kick it off with the most marvelous moment of episode 4.
Dawes?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't that marvelous?
Erica,
All right.
take her away.
So I had to think about this. There was quite a few marvelous moments, but I had to think about our Susie.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yay, Susie.
Susan.
Susan.
So weird to hear her called Susan, right?
I had to think about like this entire episode of like what a shitty day she was having. And I saw this article, and it was a quote from Alex Bernstein that said, if space weren't an issue, I would have named this episode Susie Meyerson and a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I thought that was, it kind of summed it up. Poor Susie.
Yes.
So true.
It really was. But I think the moment that kind of like just made it so marvelous was just like we got that big, deep reveal about like, you know, her past when she was, confronted by Hetty. And
finally,
and she just acted the shit out of that scene. The heartbreak was across her face, the betrayal, the loss. And Hetty is just like, you could see why she fell for her. She's just like this kind of upbeat, bubbly, like, you know, it seems like she just wants to live and just couldn't see how much of an impact that she like left on poor Susie. And I'm glad Susie kind of like, you know, put her in her place and left her there. But it was very heartbreaking. But I was just blown away by Alex Bernstein's, you know, performance. It was just incredible.
As always, man.
agreed.
She gives me the shivers every time.
Yes.
Oh.
I think I felt more in that scene in the last 2 minutes of the episode than I did for honestly like the first 4 episodes of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
I
know. I will. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I will always remember the moment that Susie did the speech at Jackie's funeral.
Oh, God.
And I can't watch it. I cannot watch that. And that's my favorite episode of the show ever. That episode as a whole, that episode where they went to Jackie's funeral. But I can never watch that moment without crying. And no matter how many times I watch it, she gets me every time.
Absolutely. I have a feeling we might have some more of those moments coming up in this season. It could be rough.
I know.
I think so too. And I just want to mention again, and it just kind of transitioned into it. They used Joan Jett's "I Hate Myself for Loving You," which could not have been more perfect, anthem of fuck you and that past relationship that just like totally destroyed you. But it was
perfect song
yes,
selection.
Perfect.
And
Absolutely.
the last line that Susie says to Hetty is with a quiver of tears in her voice, like, "You look good as a blonde." Like
I know.
I'm not doing it justice, but the way that she delivers that line and like her voice just cracks just a tiny bit. I'm like, Alex Borstein, how do you do this to me? How do you do it?
Seriously, the emotion that she fit into that one line, I was just like, son of a bitch, this is going to be painful later, probably.
It really is. It really, really is.
Ah, yes. All right.
Painful later. It's painful now, but, still.
I'm going to have a hard time giving up on her. Like, not giving her up, but giving her up as a character that we always get to visit. Like, I love her character so much.
Yeah, I think that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man, is my most marvelous moment that very last line? Like, it might be, because now I'm looking at my most marvelous moment, and I'm like, it's marvelous, but for a different reason. I don't know. Kara, you go. What's your most marvelous moment?
Well, and I had a hard time picking between, that whole exchange with Susie and Hetty at the end. But I ended up going with one of the Abe moments because it stood out to me so much. And I think it stood out to me even more because this is a show and Amy Sherman Palladino is known for the talking, like how much dialogue is fit into each episode, like how long the scripts are. And Abe apologizing to Rose by gathering up those rose petals.
Thank you, Kara.
I lost it. Like
this was a major contender for me.
Right? Like it
for
was
marvelous
just
moment.
And when I rewatched it, it hit me even more because obviously I'm sure we're going to talk about that dinner scene after the play, which was atrocious in so many ways on Abe's behalf. To go from this, kind of painfully awkward scene where you could tell that Rose was not feeling great about Abe because he had been a little pretentious and condescending. And then they come home and get slapped in the face by romance, basically, with Zelda and Janusz being engaged. Like, I just loved everything about that scene. Them showing them silently getting ready for bed and then laying apart in their little twin beds. And you could tell Abe was just like waiting for the moment for Zelda and Janusz to go to bed. Went outside and gathered up all of those rose petals. Like, I just thought he and Rose, like, both of them did such an amazing job conveying so much in that scene with zero dialogue. And when he goes over, he gets back in bed, finally gets up and goes and puts his head in her lap, and she kind of hesitates for a second and starts to put her hand on his head. Just kind of, okay, I forgive you. Like, I thought it was just kind of the perfect Abe apology. Because we know how hard it is for him to admit and accept when he's wrong. We saw that with the whole typo.
It's impossible. It is actually physically impossible for Abe to acknowledge that he could ever be wrong.
We
remember last episode when he was like saying how he's never been wrong ever in his life in school. He's like, I might have gotten something wrong in kindergarten, but there are no records of my time there. I checked.
I think with anybody else, he would not acknowledge that he did wrong or hurt anybody's feelings. But with Rose, I think that was huge of him. So I think that definitely was my most marvelous moment.
That was I was going to just say that was also the one I was like, I love that. And I was going to just say I related so much because my husband has a very hard time as well. And my husband happens to be Lebanese, just like Tony Shalhoub. And I'm like, when that moment happened, we looked at each other and I'm like, you're Abe.
Are you the Abe to my Rose? You know what's funny though, Erica? You are very Rosy now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah. I'm like, maybe that's why I love you so much because Rose is my fave.
But no, I agree. It was so, I was like furious at Abe, and I was like, good for you, Rose, for standing up for yourself and putting Abe in his place. But you're right that the silence was just like louder than words could possibly be.
I also want to note for the listeners at home that can't see us on Zoom is that Erica blushed slightly and it was adorable.
It was. And she can blush on cue. It's like such a rare talent.
Thank you. I did play Rosie in Cabaret, mind you. No.
There you go.
Yes.
Of course.
That's a whole different Rose.
Whole different Rose.
Yes. I have a couple of thoughts about that, but we'll save it for when we get to that moment in our breakdown. So I'll jump in with my most marvelous moment. Now, I will say I did predict this on our last episode, but it was not that hard of a prediction, okay? I mean, it was pretty ham-fisted into the episode. Like, Tess is on the phone for a hot second with Susie talking about her singing ability. We're like, this is probably going somewhere, like...
Yep.
And you could say that that's like a, very obvious foreshadowing, whatever. Some may call it obvious or clunky storytelling. I call it making my dreams come true. That's what I call it.
Absolutely.
Because Tess, as the garbage lady, you guys, was giving me
that was pretty fabulous.
Life and a half. Okay.
Yes.
I want to pick, like, I struggle to pick this as my most marvelous moment. It was a close call. There were so many other great moments. So it's like, I just want to say everything about this is my most marvelous moment. And I kind of don't want to get into it all right now because it's such a big part of like the breakdown and everything. But I do just want to say there was a moment within this big moment where she I forget the actual line that she is singing, but she like, her legs are kind of spread open and she like reaches down to her ankles and like sexually gropes herself, like running her hands up her thighs. And then she grabs this very clearly empty wine bottle and just like swings it back. I'm like, that's the moment that I think I just died,
That was gold.
And for anyone who listened to our Dead to Me podcast or my Poker Face podcast, we would always call this moment our moment to die for. And that's always the way I go about it, is when I pick this moment is like, what moment did I just die? Die in the best way. And that moment when Tess like suggestively touched herself and then swigged that empty wine bottle. She is so committed to this performance. Oh my God, I can't wait to get into
that production value was pretty high in that industrial convention.
So high.
It was so good.
I can't wait. Okay, let's get into it. So listeners, how we're going to go about this breakdown for this recap is we're just going to take all the moments chronologically as the scenes go, and we're each going to kind of like take turns starting off our thoughts. So who would like to go first with this opening musical number with the flowers and the gardeners at the New York City
I could definitely talk about that.
Go for it.
I mean, I love a Palladino fever dream musical moment. And I feel like anybody that watched Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life should not be surprised that this is happening in the show, because just seeing this episode and thinking about all the musical moments, I had The Stars Hollow, the musical, stuck in my head all day.
Yes.
But like, of course, we know Amy Sherman Palladino. It loves musical theater. We know her relationship.
She was a dancer.
Like she's fabulous. And her and Sutton Foster, bringing Sutton and Christian Borle in back in Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. I just feel I wonder how people who are not musical theater nerds feel about this episode, because I'm feeling like they're not going to love it. But I could not get enough of it. Especially the opening. Like, it was just so fantastical. The costumes and everything, like the production value, like you said, was pretty outstanding considering it was an industrial show. But as we'll learn later, that's not so rare. But I was all in immediately as soon as the show started.
Yeah, when those men dancing with the leaf blowers like blew up the girls' skirts.
And the tulips at the end, like once they cut, it's like, can we just crouch? Like, why do we have to get all the way on the ground? Like, it was just, it made me so happy.
And then it was like a theater in the round where it was just spinning and you just didn't know how to look. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. But it was just a weird hodgepodge of like, now and again, I didn't watch Gilmore Girls, but I'm like, how many different cultural references can you throw in there? You have Marilyn Monroe, you got these tulips. It was great. It was so cool.
Definitely.
If you watch,
I will say, go on. I was going to say, I was watching this on the plane. I went back to Houston this weekend, and as soon as this started, there were like 3 middle-aged men in the vicinity, and I could see them all kind of like tilt their heads at my screen. And I was just like, at least it's eye-catching.
Yes.
Obviously.
The colors are like Technicolor. Yeah, yes. The colors are like, they could not be brighter and more beautiful. Vibrant.
Yeah. Vibrant.
This show is truly a feast for the senses, for the eyes and ears. Absolutely. I love the I just want to like sing these songs. They're so catchy in like the best way. They're like, thanks to New York City turf and landscape pros, everything grows. That's how it goes.
Good.
Everything grows. So it's like all of these musical advertisements for New York City maintenance people at this expo center. And I like on first watch, I was like, oh, that's so, unrealistic. Like, I love this, but how unrealistic is that? Like these Broadway level performers doing, this expo center advertisements. No, apparently this was a thing.
Yeah, turns out it's very realistic, actually.
Yeah, there's documentaries about this on YouTube. I don't know if you guys were able to like look into this at all. I know I was texting you guys being like, I don't know how to properly articulate how big of a thing this was in like the 50s, 60s. I think especially in the 60s, these like live shows that were advertisements and real Broadway singers, chorus people would be involved. So this was
like
really
Fosse big.
Yeah.
I thought of it initially before you had sent any of those YouTube videos or we had any background. I was like, okay, so is this like a car show on the weekend or something like that sort of equivalent? And because obviously like Midge and Susie did not seem thrilled with it at all, but realizing just how big it was, especially in New York, that put it all into perspective.
Yeah. Yep. It was a thing.
It's like one of those bridal expos that's been like, blown out to like, if we wanted to modernize it.
That's probably true. And I just thought of like, I think I texted earlier that it just seemed kind of like Super Bowl commercial big to me. Like
that's a good,
this would be the event where, you have that one chance to make your company memorable and make your product memorable. And just so happened they did it with, like tap dancing and singing. So,
yeah. And that's why
I don't hate it.
I love like 50s, 60s commercials. I just get such a kick out of them. The way that everything was produced as such a heightened reality. Isn't life wonderful? Hey there, housewives. Do you need some soap? Like, that's why the intro to this podcast is me doing that super cheesy. I just want to live in that world. I feel like my voice, as I'm a voiceover actor, and my voice naturally lends itself to being a 50s announcer person. It's like the happy place my voice wants to live in all the time. I'm just not like I don't know how I am like a modern day 30-something woman who is deep down inside a used car salesman from the 60s, 50s. 60s. Like that is who I am.
Obviously, like that idyllic version of the 50s and 60s that we know, there was a lot of sinister underlying issues, but the happy part of it, the commercial part of it is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's like fun to look back on.
Aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, and it's fun to look back on in a way that's like, damn, that's kind of creepy, but it's like it's awe-inspiring. It just, I don't know. It's different times.
There had to be something pleasant to come out of those.
Well, that's probably why we like the movie Pleasantville.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that is such a good movie.
Yes, it is.
I'm gonna have to watch that now.
I love it so much, but it does kind of show the idealistic, kind of beautiful. It seems to be wonderful, but really deep down, it shows all the ugliness behind it. But
definitely.
Yes.
So let's go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was kind of transition into Frankie and Nikki asking Susie for a favor.
Read my mind. Go for it.
After realizing how big of a deal these industrial shows were, it made my stomach hurt even more thinking about like how Susie and Midge maybe didn't take it seriously enough. And I'm sure we'll get to it later on once Midge does her thing on stage the second time. But when Frank and Nikki were asking for a favor, the first watch, I was just like, oh, okay, of course. Like she should have expected that they were going to have to do something. But the second time around, I was like, Susie, you better listen to them.
Yeah.
Like,
and Midge,
is not a joke.
Midge knew about it, right? From the beginning. She was like, I know. She
was worried.
Yeah. And when we'll get to it in a minute, when Midge and Susie have that phone call and Midge is like, I know what payback is, or reciprocation means. Do they know what reciprocation means? Like Midge is aware of what's going on right now. So yeah. So Frank and Nikki. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it brought me back to, what was that episode when she got her office, the Susie Meyerson Associates.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when, really, honestly, Frank and Nikki said, like, that there is going to be some type of payback. Yeah, you'll do us a favor down the line. Like, it was already planted right there that they were giving something and they were expecting some type of payback. Yeah. And it wasn't going to be
Susie,
one-time deal. She wasn't even paying attention.
Oh, yeah. That was some willful ignorance on Susie's part there. It's like, I'm just going to shove this down until I have to deal with it.
Yep. So the lead guy dropped out of their show. They're producing this musical at Building New York Expo. How? Who knows? They got their hands in all kinds of different places, and they're pressuring Susie to do them a favor. They flash a paper. 200 that says 200 on it. And Susie's like, that is a very nice number. And apparently $200 in 1960, according to the inflation calculator, is a little over 2,000 today dollars.
That's pretty good for 2 shows.
Yeah, the 2 shows
I do
ain't
that.
too shabby. I would be thrilled to get this gig if I were Midge.
Especially since she didn't have to memorize the line. She just had it.
I know.
Right.
But it bothered me so much that she was not off script. I was really bothered by that.
That made me think of actually Jade and Eric. I don't know if you watch Poker Face, but there one Poker Face episode.
You don't know if I watch Poker Face?
No, I meant Erica. I know you watched it.
Oh, no, I didn't. I actually guest hosted on one of those episodes. I love Poker Face.
That's right.
Yes.
There was the dinner party one where, gosh, I can't remember her name, but she's looking at the millennial actress and she's just like, what is that? And looking at her with her script in her hand.
Oh,
that's
yes.
what I thought of.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So I was just like, yep, put that script away. Get it away.
Yes.
I did like Frank listing off, all the favors that he's done for Susie. He's like, that not killing you that time. And she's like, that was a good favor. It's like, yeah, that's pretty important.
Yeah.
We forget that
they say
are dangerous people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they got her an amazing Times Square office, furnished, and the not killing you that time. Yeah, that was a good favor.
Even there was a blood stain.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Susie had to do a lot to that place to fix it up, but they helped her, like that's a pretty big favor that they did for Susie. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we'll get to more of that. So then we go to Midge at this office hangover party, which was amazing. Now, since watching this, there's an interview with David Muller, the cinematographer, on YouTube, and it's called I'm going to link the YouTube video in the show notes so you guys can check it out, listeners, because it is so cool to hear the cinematographer talk about what he does on this show, because they have truly perfected what they call oneers, long one take scenes.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And now I'm so aware of it, especially after watching that YouTube video. And this episode is like the closest thing we'll ever get to The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, the musical, which I wish was an actual Broadway thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe it will be one day.
Maybe
I don't know. I mean, I hope so. Ship it, man. I'd totally go to that. I'd buy tickets. And most background actors on this show are dancers. And because the camera, they say, needs specific timing. So the blocking is like choreography. And a choreographer actually comes in and helps whoever is directing that week's episode. They help them direct they help them block out the scene because they count it like music, with where the camera swings around and moves around. And they have this incredible crane with this. They basically will like swing the camera on a crane and then seamlessly during the long take detach the camera from the crane without jerking it around too much or whatever. I don't know how camera people do it. I know. As an actor myself, I've been on a lot of sets where I am watching the camera operator, the DP, the cinematographer, these people, and they're doing like this superhuman effort. I'm in awe of camera people. I just don't know how do they do it. It is incredible. And rarely on television do scenes not cut after just a few lines of dialogue. It is incredibly rare for a scene to go minutes without cutting. I mean, and this show does it on the regular. They do the impossible constantly. I mean, this show deserves all the awards. All of them.
Emmys.
It's just layers and layers of little conversations and little tidbits, like you would see the ice skates in the air and people just passed out, and then
people limping around the office.
It's so funny.
Yeah, the girl hobbling by with one ice skate still
Yes.
on. I was just like, what? And the girl showing up with her clothes on backwards, and just it was
And you get two.
Marge, the secretary. I love this woman. She's played by the actress. Her name is Annie Golden, which is a great name.
She's funny.
And she's looking at this girl like, honey, everything's on backwards. Take two. She's handing out like a hair of the dog check-in station.
It's so good.
And even the dialogue in that scene was so seamless, like with all of the writers commiserating, being like, did we all kiss Betty Porter last night? And Midge coming in, like she had a baby last Tuesday, and I can't remember his name, the
Alvin?
head writer coming in. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, did you know Betty Porter was pregnant? And he immediately goes, what are you insinuating?
Yes.
I don't
great.
know why, but I lost it with that one. I was like, that was an excellent moment.
It was a really good scene. They were playing, the song was Heaven Can Wait that was playing in the background. I looked a bit into it because I'm like, I know that song, but I'm like trying to think about like how that tied into this scene of like Hangover City. And it's like, like you had this like taste of paradise on the earthly plane and all this. And I'm like, it was so funny and just kind of like, all right, they just kind of indulged too much and they're paying now.
Clever.
It's really cute.
That.
And I just say I really enjoyed Midge's outfit during this scene, the blue dress with the beige detail and that amazing red, white, and gray, or red, blue, and gray hat. I fucking love the 60s, man.
Done.
I love her clothes.
I don't think she's ever had a miss with any of her clothes. I don't even know how I could possibly rate her clothes. She looked gorgeous.
This was one of my favorite looks ever.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good. That hat. Oh, I want that hat. I want to wear it now. Give me that.
I was like, what was y'all's favorite kind of hungover moment?
Oh man. I think that like the idea that, the fact that it was all one huge take, one huge long take, that was what I was so focused on.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty impressive.
It was so impressive. And one of my favorite moments is that when it swings back around to that woman sitting with her feet up at the desk and she just like picks up the phone and rings and then hangs it up immediately. That got me every time.
So funny. I think my favorite thing was hearing them in the background, all of the writers later on, that like slow drawn out version of, the Kazons rolling.
They're slurring. Kara, you read my mind. I like every time I catch something in my notes and I'm just about to say it, like you say it. I love that you do that.
Great minds. There
Great
you go.
minds.
I have the same thing. The only other thing I just wanted to notice, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, is that like Midge is just like serving out the coffee to everybody. And I almost felt like she was kind of redirecting in that female kind of role again, like serving the men. Which
I got a little snarky in my head.
Yeah.
I was like, of course, Midge is the one going around giving all of them coffee.
Oh, yeah.
But she's also the smart one who's not hungover at work.
Yes.
She's like, man, can no one here hold their liquor? Like Midge, breezes in fresh as a daisy.
Yeah.
Because she's Midge, and this is who she is. She is overachieving on the regular. She doesn't know any other way to be. And it's like easy for her.
Oh, and it's how she was raised too. Like it's just second nature.
Rose taught her well. My Rose, she knows what's up. And it's like I watch women like this in everyday life, on television, and I hate these women. I'm like, fuck you, bitch. I love Midge though. I don't know. I mean, I don't always love Midge. We'll get there.
Some choices are questionable.
But this aspect of Midge, like, it doesn't bother me. I love that she's so perfect. It's just, it's Rachel Brosnahan. She sells it. I'm buying.
Oh, yeah.
Buying what she's selling. All right, let's get to Midge and Gordon's little talk. A little on the set of Gordon's show. I love when Midge walks in. Gordon's like sliding back and forth in his chair.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's a lot more fun with a girl. That was crack me up.
But she brings the innuendo into like with him too. That was one thing I think that was very intentional on their part. Like she's not completely, shutting him down. After all, the reason that he was married was number 10 on her list as to why they should be together.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was a fun conversation, though.
It was.
So Gordon's acting gross, as he does. But he wants to make sure Midge is okay with the kiss and the lips touching moment or whatever he says. And he just proceeds to ask Midge out on a date. And I hate the only reason that, I think that this is just the reason that Midge gives him is because he's married is basically the only reason. I'm like, what about the fact that he's like an asshole? Mm-hmm. I want her to say that to him, but
you can't say like, you're my boss or I want to be on your show, but not like you're a dick.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like she never really, this is what I don't really mean it because you can't say things like truthfully to Gordon about himself. We all know how that went last time. He doesn't hear it, And I remember last time
she didn't get fired.
Right.
And the only reason she didn't is because he wants to.
Lovely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But also, I mean, there might be a little bit of professionalism still trying to kind of keep that she does realize that he is the boss and she wants to be on his show. So she's going to play his game and not, go too far.
Yeah, she is.
And at first, like, watching it and hearing him say, it's a very specific kind of marriage. We have an understanding. I feel like, one, we could obviously take it as he's in an open marriage and they're just, very free and embracing the 60s.
I think that Midge refers to it as an open marriage later.
Yes. But then my first thought, I was like, okay, well, if Hetty was romantically involved with Susie, then maybe it's more of a beard situation where she doesn't feel comfortable being out completely, so they have this arrangement. And now I'm just not sure.
Yeah, it could be
not the episode.
It could possibly be a little bit of both.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
And he does. I mean, he really did seem, I believed him when he said, my wife's a great lady. I love her. So maybe she's been open with him and he's got, you have your life, I have mine. Mm-hmm. Still doesn't make me super comfortable with the fact that he's Mitch's boss, though.
No. And it also doesn't really, I mean, what does he get out of it? Like, he could have anybody he wants, whether he was married to her or not. So it's kind of, it's a beard for her. But what is it a beard for him? So you're right.
It's a beard for him in the way that he is a rascal and he is a rake, a rake, as they would say on Bridgerton.
It gives him that appearance of, being a household family man and everything like that, as opposed to this bachelor, I guess. Yeah. I'm assuming that's what he would get out of it.
Right. Like, I get the sense that Gordon is just one of those guys who he's not the marrying kind, and he could never be with just one person and be faithful to them. And so by marrying Hetty, who, as I'm thinking, this is a beard situation, then she is able to have her relationship or many relationships, whatever, however committed or not committed she wants to be with her significant others. And then he gets to kind of play the field forever and be happy being his rakish self. But I think that Gordon, this just goes to show, it just reinforces what an asshole Gordon really is, because the only reason, we'll get there. Actually, we'll get there later. I'm just going to say, Midge says that it would complicate her quest to be on his show, and he says nothing about his rule as of yet. He claims it's because she's too pretty.
Casually left that out.
Yep.
It's such a big rule. I was like, you could have thrown that out there, Gordon. But he wants her to keep her around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He doesn't want to upset her. And Midge doesn't take it seriously. I think she assumes that she'll get a shot on his show. You know, this is kind of just like playful conversation. So then Midge gets a phone call. Susie's on the phone. Susie's under the impression that this one favor will count as payback and then they will be even. And Midge is like,
sweet summer child.
oh,
She's like, Susie, no.
Susie.
There is no way.
And I think I'm shocked that it's funny to me because Susie is the street smart one out of these two. It seems like Susie should be well aware of how this kind of shit rolls. And Midge is the one who is more worldly in her knowledge when it comes to Frank and Nikki. Mm-hmm. And Susie has these weird blind spots of her awareness levels very rarely because her job is like to be aware of other people. And she's good at her job. She spots talent. She zeroes in on it. She can see a diamond in the rough. She sees what other people miss. But when it comes to her own fat being in the fire, man, Susie.
Definitely.
Man, Susie. Susie needs a manager is what she needs. She needs like a financial advisor, like bad. And Dinah is not that. I'm sorry. I love you, Dinah. But Dinah, she's a little too space cadet-y to be helpful in this area. Although she is helpful.
It's true, though.
She is helpful in the office.
Yeah, she's a good secretary.
Midge had to be the one to say, do they understand what reciprocation means? And I was just like, yes, I was like, I mean, you guys are completely misunderstanding what reciprocation. I can't even say the word
what
right
they
now.
need is they need Kara to be their lawyer.
Yes, I was sitting there the whole time. I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah, and you're like Susie, itching in your seat, I'm sure. As a lawyer, you're like, my skin's crawling.
But it's like and I think part of it too, like it comes out a little bit later on, but maybe like some of us being charmed by Frank and Nikki, and they've been kind of protective of Midge and even Rose. And it's like they made us forget that they're part of the mob.
Yes. And they're hitmen.
It's an arrangement.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, sure. Like they probably care about Susie and they care about Midge, but they care about their jobs and their boss even more. So that was kind of a nice reminder.
They compartmentalize like pros. They're like, yeah, we love you, Susie. Of course, you're like family, but we'll break your fucking kneecaps if you don't do what we say. Like, that's just how it rolls. And they would do that to anyone in their family too, I think. You know, like, I feel like Frank and Nikki are loyal to
each other,
one.
Probably.
Yeah. And we forget these things. And I love the way that the Palladinos write this shit because we fall so in love with, especially Nikki. He's like a teddy bear, you know?
Exactly.
And
he like
Susie
compliments Midge on the neckline of her outfit at one point in this episode. And I was like, aw, that's so sweet. And then it's like, oh, by the way, I'll kill you. So.
It's kind of like the Abe phenomenon too, because it's like, oh, Abe, I love you. Wow, what a dick you are. Oh my God, you're such a dick. It's like so weird how I can feel two ways about a character at the exact same time. Like Midge.
Oh yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I will say I have to shout out the little ADHD moment that made me really happy when they're talking on the phone. When Susie is, relaying all this information to Midge and Midge won't stop interrupting her. And she goes, can you stop your brain for 1 second and take in all the information before you speak? And Midge just goes, no.
That spoke to me.
That is my brain.
Yes, same.
I was like, that sounds about right. But the way, like, even that beat that Rachel Brosnahan took before saying no, I was just like, oh, they're all so good.
Yes,
you are so much.
Kara, you like read my mind. You say the things that I don't bother to take notes on. And I love that.
Well, that's good. That works out.
Because that was a note in my brain and I was like, but I can't write everything, because good Lord, the notes for this show, like
they'll go on forever and ever.
They'll go on forever. This show is so dense. Like, it really is. This is the densest show I've ever podcasted on.
And it's just, I think that's why I love Amy Sherman Palladino so much. Because even on, your 10th rewatch of an episode, you can still get something new out of it.
Absolutely.
And it's just, it makes it so much fun. And like Susie trying to convince Midge, she was like, the way she said cute, she was like, it's girly shit. You love girly shit.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
where is it? She goes, I wrote it down. Keep talking. I'll find it.
I'm trying to remember how she even said cute.
She goes, what I saw was cute. They had tulips dancing around. Girly shit. You love girly shit.
Brilliant.
So good. But it's true. Like, Midge loves girly shit. Like, give her a hat. Even Frank and Nikki knew Nikki was, in particular, was like, I knew you'd love the hat. Like, it's got a little hat.
I know. I love that line. I love it so much. One of my favorite moments. And we get a reference to who am I, Luella Parsons? And for those of you who don't know, famous movie columnist, kind of like Hedda Hopper level, only about movies and that kind of film. What do you call it? Gossip columnist, I guess. I don't know. What were you going to say, Kara?
Oh no, I was just going to say, bring up something I noticed on a rewatch of episode 1 that kind of ties in.
Yes, go for it.
Midge asking about Hetty, because she's like, what do you know about Gordon's wife? And the way Susie reacts, she's just like, why the fuck would I know the story? Like, very defensive. And I realized rewatching episode 1, when Susie is being kind of chased out after she and Mike have their little communication during the show by the security guard, she hears Hetty's voice with her friend.
Yes.
And I did not even process that until rewatching. I was like, because I remember wondering, is it Hedy Lamarr? But Hedy Lamarr was more popular in the 30s and 40s, so why would she be following her? And it wasn't until even that exchange, I was like, oh shit,
and that was such a little tiny nugget at the end of the episode. Yep. They didn't even reference it until 3 episodes later. But then they also
I love that.
I do. And then when she noticed his picture, like that was the other time.
Yes.
You kind of were like, who is Gordon's wife? Who is this woman? Yep. And why is Susie so spooked?
Very good job breadcrumbing us into the end of this episode and that reveal. Yep, I appreciated that.
And it felt like it didn't feel like it was they were just trying to make it obvious. It was just
they're not
very
hitting
seamless.
us over the head with it.
Yeah, it was really Yeah.
So more about this scene, this little phone call between Midge and Susie. Susie tells Midge to get out of work by telling them you have lady troubles. It's a great excuse. It can mean anything, and I guarantee you, not one guy is going to ask you to clarify.
Oh yeah, I think we can all relate to that at one point or another.
Oh yeah, but this is the thing. It is so hard being a woman. Okay, It's fucking hard. I'm not a mom. I don't know how you did it, Erica. I don't know how you did it. And I know you said you had a difficult pregnancy.
Yes.
Holy fuck.
But you know what? We've been using these excuses and they're valid excuses
entitled
since puberty. So it's cool. We've been using it to our gym teacher, to our professors, to our bosses.
Oh, yeah.
It's like living in New York, okay?
It's so fair.
Fucking expensive. It's so fucking expensive to live here. So when I'm late, I will blame the subway. I will lie and I will blame the subway. That's what I will do. And fuck you, no one can take that away from me because it's like a perk that you get for living in an impossibly expensive city. You always have a way out because subway, traffic.
You got to take what you can.
Yeah.
And it's actually it's usually not a lie either. Like the subway and traffic is, and just like being a woman having lady troubles, like it does get in the way of things, okay? It's not always a lie. So it can't even like be a boy who cried wolf situation because 9 times out of 10, it's probably the truth anyway, But anyway.
I think that's been evidenced by those videos that I think I've seen it on TikTok where they have those period cramp simulators and they'll put them on men.
Oh my God,
and crank them up and the men will be like doubled over in pain and at a level like 4 and a woman's at like a level 8 or 10. It's like, oh yeah, this is usually like the first day of my period and I have to go to work and, pick the kids up and do all this stuff. It's like, yeah, it's a legitimate excuse.
And the men are like crying in their, but being, it's like, yeah, now put on heels, makeup, a fucking bra and go to work on top of that.
Oh yeah. Oh, no heels.
Oh, I could go on.
I can't do it.
I know.
Same.
Not unless I have to. Heels and makeup only when I absolutely have to. Okay, anyway. So one more line that I have to say. Midge says, she's talking about the kids. inviting the kids to see her perform. And she's like, oh, that's, I could invite the kids to see the show. And she goes, because it'll be years before I let them see one of my shows. Longer if they're screwed up and I need them for material. And it's like,
there's some foreshadowing.
It's like wink, wink.
Everything to do with the kids, you guys, because of this foreshadowing, it like makes it juicier. And okay, and I know we like really came down hard on the foreshadowing flash forward thing last time, but this episode, we did not get any flash forwards.
We did not.
True.
What are your thoughts? How do you feel?
I was okay with no flash forwards. Honestly,
I feel like a loser because I liked it so much without. I'm like, oh, it's my old Miss Maisel again. I feel like a lame-o because guys, we are in the minority. There's not one person online, not one review that I found where anyone disliked the flash forwards, and I was like, oh, shit, we're gonna get hate.
The only place I did see, like, I checked in on a Reddit thread for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and there were some people that didn't love it. And I will say, like, in this episode, though, I
good
feel
old
like
Reddit.
There were it's so helpful sometimes, but there were definitely things that I feel like relate to the flash forwards that come up, and there were references that I think are going to become, I don't know, like just little Easter eggs as we start to get more in the season. But while the flash forwards not being present didn't bother me, I do wish we had a little bit less of the musical, which we can talk about.
Oh, I've heard so many complaints. I like the musicals.
Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, I know, like, I think all of us are varying degrees of musical theater nerd. So it made me, I could have watched it all day, but by the end of it, I was just like, but I wanted more of this, and I wish we got more of this. And the Paladinos don't always edit like they should.
I was going to say the only thing...
Well put.
The only thing I think that was like disastrous, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, was just the painful, again, like that secondhand embarrassment of Midge. That portion of the musical is where I'm like, I was over it. But yeah, but I think it's very valid. Before we transition, I know I don't want to go back a little bit, but just to talk about the flash forwards, I think I'm very sentimental and I cherish these characters so much. And I think there's just a little bit of part of that, like, I don't want to let go. But also the flash forwards are just like, oh, they're so dismal. They're not friends anymore. It's not that I didn't like the artistic direction of the flash forwards. They're filmed beautifully. They looked authentic. It didn't look like silly and cheap and bad Photoshop. It's just, I kind of want this fantasy of Midge's life to continue. It's an escape. It's positive. Yes, there are some negative things that we get to touch throughout the seasons, but that's the problem. Like, we're realizing the show's about to end. So I think that was my feeling of the negativity towards the flash forwards, because like I said, even the very first episode, I wasn't expecting that like slam of Esther. And and again, it wasn't like a bad choice of the direction that the Sherman Paladinos were going. It's just, I'm like, oh, they're going to get old. All those things that Midge did is going to come, it's going to come through, to fruition, that she messed up her kids' lives a little bit or whatever. But I just wanted to add that where I was going.
Yeah, I can see that.
I thought about it too, and I realized the biggest reason that I dislike the flash forwards is because Midge just isn't happy. And I'm glad she's successful, a famous comedian, but like at what cost, And
is it realistic? Yes. But does it make me happy?
Right.
No. Not at all.
And it's like, I feel like if we were getting everything sunshine and rainbows, I would be complaining, oh, but come on, make it a little more real. It's like, you always want what you don't get, You always want what you don't have. It's just the thing. And I will say, I did a rewatch as well of the first 3 episodes, and Midge does have a moment of awareness, because I know we were questioning, like, how aware is Midge of, like, the fact that Ethan especially doesn't like her very much. And I was like, I don't know. I'm worried for Midge's sanity because she doesn't seem to be like living in the real world. And there is a moment though that I clocked on my rewatch where she has a moment of awareness where she says goodbye to Ethan, and before she gets on the helicopter, and she looks at him and she just goes, I wish you'd have told me that you were getting married. And she looks very sad, and she's very much aware that Ethan does not approve of her or really like her very much at all. And she knows that they've grown apart, and she's sad. And again, ew, I don't like this. It makes my stomach feel like I just want Midge to be happy.
And it's funny too, because like I don't like what's happening, but at the same time, anytime we got new information, I was still like devouring that information and clocking it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am very willing to see how it plays out.
Totally.
Same.
Because I say that.
Yeah.
But after a year in the life and how that ended, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if I trust them entirely.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I spoiler alert for any Game of Thrones fans, it's just like, I don't think they're going a Daenerys route. Yeah, I know. But because you could see where Midge like kind of made these mistakes or where these things kind of stemmed from. And I'm going to need your help when we get to her little tantrum, because it took me a little bit to think about like where that kind of all stemmed from.
Okay, so this dinner scene with Abe, Rose, Midge, Zelda, and Janusz, right? Where everyone ends up passing out. Erica, you kick it off. I feel like
I just
your go.
This scene was just adorable and hilarious, and I just was like looking at everything, and I even had to ask my husband about this. I'm like, why is it so cluttered in there? Like there's like all this stuff all over the table. And he was like, well, it's because Abe doesn't have a study anymore. I'm like, really? So I just was like enjoying like the conversation. And
That's
then,
funny.
Midge was marveling over Rose's beautiful jewelry. And then Rose just goes, and I'm not going to deliver. Stop imagining my death. It was just, it was so, it was such a cute little go back and forth about, all their different things. And I can't deliver as much, but I loved Janusz's coming out with the cake. What was it? The babka? That his, I forget whose recipe was it. He's like,
special rum syrup and
I put little soldiers on it for the kids. And then I'm a pessimist, but thank you. Yeah, it was adorable. I really loved it. It was just like a little kind of perfect little quiet interlude before everything started kind of going down south. But it was just, and then of course it was just extremely silly. Like all of a sudden they're talking, and then eventually they're just like completely all passed out. Loved it.
I was like, what the hell did he put in that cake?
I wanted that cake so bad. I could smell the rum permeating through the TV screen.
I love rum cake. Babka?
So good.
Man.
I need it now.
But yeah.
Like, I half expected the joke to be that they all were all passed out and Abe and Rose missed their play.
Same.
Like,
I thought so too.
Yep. And then I was like, well, how long were they passed out for? It couldn't have been that long if the kids are being taken off to bed and they made it to their play. But I enjoyed it.
I didn't really consider that.
Cake.
I didn't really consider that they were going to the play that night. For some reason, I thought they were talking about something they were going to do the next night.
Oh, maybe that is what it was.
I think it was, because I thought so the first time I watched it.
I took it so literally. I was like, what are they doing? They're going to miss their play. And then I was like, oh, they're at dinner or drinks again? That makes more sense.
Although that would have been funny.
This jewelry trying on thing, it took me until the second time I watched it to realize, I was just like, why is this here? What is this about? It feels like something foreshadowing, right? Like they're laying the groundwork for something. And I'm like, but what though? But what? And am I the only one who gets like creepy vibes from Janusz?
Oh no, he's creepy. Like, I thought that was part of the joke, especially, the first couple episodes or the first episode where you see him in the background. I was like, who the hell is this giant bald guy just walking around? And then
this guy looking like Mr. Clean who's got a boner for Zelda.
I was just like, what is happening? But I don't know. And I couldn't tell if it was like, if he was intentionally, like if he was supposed to be creepy. Or if that was just
I think
that I was getting.
Or he's testing out that babka for something later on. Hopefully not.
I don't know.
And no one. Little weird. I was like, Did he roofie them with rum? Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it can't just be rum because Midge goes, whoa, there's like so much rum. This cake is really rum filled. And he goes, oh no, it bakes off. Like it all the rum dissolves when you bake it.
We do know that Midge can hold her liquor. She just really can't deal with multiple bottles of wine.
No, everyone being flat, everyone being face flat on the table, that is not rum. That is something else. And no one thinks to question this. Like all of them are just like, they all just wake up, peel their faces off their dinner plates and go, huh, that's weird. And Janusz is like, the children will sleep really well.
The unconscious children off to bed.
Yeah, very creepy. But that makes me sad, though, if this is going to happen, just in case. Poor Zelda.
I know. I want Zelda.
I was like, it'd be a weird direction, kind of, to make him sinister. But he seems a little creepy.
There's something there.
Something off.
So my
He's
prediction...
Gonna, rob them.
That's what I'm saying. I think that he is going to steal that jewelry. That is my prediction.
Yeah. You know what?
I could see that. He's like testing it out to see how long it knocks them all out.
You know what?
I mean, he is in the background. He's got ears, and he's in another room, but like you can still hear everything that they're saying. She's trying on these family heirlooms of jewelry that are like so precious. Rose is like, don't imagine my death. Stop him. Because she's not parting with those until she dies. She's like, you're going to give them to me on my next birthday? And she's like, no, not until I'm dead. Can you have these jewels? Like, they are mine until I die. I'm just
hoping Zelda isn't in on it. Because like they are getting engaged, and I know we'll talk about that too, but I was just like, well, do they run off together?
Oh God, I hope not.
Like Bonnie and Clyde style?
Yeah, because I mean, Zelda is also not treated the best all the time.
No, but she is loved.
That's true.
Yes, Abe very much loves her stew. He's like...
Abe, they would all be in so much trouble without Zelda. Like, Zelda is the backbone of that household.
And Abe's like, what is this stew? And Zelda, it is an old world recipe. And he, stop, I don't want to know, too scary. Miriam, pass me some more of that old world mystery stew, would you please? He loves it. But he doesn't want to know what's in it. Like when Rose was making him food in Paris, what is this? What does it taste like? She's like, I'm not telling you.
I will say, if nothing comes from that, like the rum cake and them being passed out, then I like it less, because then it just seems a little awkwardly heavy-handed.
Oh no, something's definitely coming from that.
No,
that's there for a reason.
I just want all that now.
Yeah.
I'm so curious.
I'm so worried now.
Yeah, now.
Yeah. So, okay, Rose is excited to go see this show with the guy who used to work at the Village Voice, Carl. He's not a friend exactly. He was a writer at the Voice. I knew him a little, but he left soon after I got there. He was a fine fellow. There was a real friendship possibility had he stayed, but he left. And long-distance relationships rarely work. I love it. There was friendship possibilities, but he wasn't a friend.
I think that's one of the reasons why I love Abe so much, is I identify with his word vomiting. Like, it just makes me happy.
Yes. Ugh. Oh, yeah. Another line I loved is when Zelda brings the cake in. I hope everyone is roomy for dessert. Janusz made it.
That was cute.
The way she said roomy. Oh, man. Yes. Okay. So that was a weird scene. Weird moment. Seeds have been planted. Now we go to this musical number at the Expo Center. This kitchen musical number. And Midge is starting her job at the Expo Center. First of all, can we talk about the set and these extras? The costumes.
It was fantastic.
It's so
beautiful.
Cool.
I want to open up my stove and have someone hand me a cake.
I
know. Or open up the washer dryer and have folded laundry.
Or the pantry and have a butler come out.
Yes.
Midge is so taken in by the performance too. She's like, she's just shopping. She's just a housewife at this thing. She goes, I'm hawking garbage. And they're like, yeah, what's wrong with that? Well, I just saw the pretty kitchen in the oven that hands you a cake. And I just thought, maybe I could be in that show. Midge is like,
which is fair.
And Midge says, doesn't she say something like that? What was it? She said she saw,
was it the Pyrex?
Yes, a Pyrex show that was life-changing. Remember, Midge has a very deep bond with her Pyrex. When she went to the Gaslight, right? Pyrex is an amazing thing. When she went to the Gaslight, I left my Pyrex here. What's a Pyrex? It's a Pyrex. Yes, I know.
Like, what do you mean, what's a Pyrex?
She keeps saying the word Pyrex. I don't know what that means. It's a dish that can go from hot to cold without cracking. I would like it back now, please. Yes.
I think my favorite part of that scene in the kitchen, besides, of course, the singer and dancer, was beautiful, but I love the way the choreography just like spun around and then it transitioned to Midge, Frank, and Nikki. Like, it was just like, you could see her arm. Of course, I'm trying to do it. I don't do it justice, but I love the camera movement of that scene, just like how it just wrapped up when it was over and went right into the dialogue.
Yes.
So seamless.
Yes.
Yes. The choreography. Who wrote that song? Make My Kitchen Dreams Come True. It's sung by the actor. She sings a couple of songs in this episode. Megan McGinnis. Apparently, she's been on 5 episodes of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, in season 2. And she played a character, Lula. They gave her a name. I don't think that she ever had any lines or anything. But she's been on a couple of Amy Sherman-Palladino shows in the past. And I just got to shout out Robin Erdang. I don't know how to say that. Urdang. He's the music supervisor along with Amy Sherman and Daniel Palladino. Just amazing music. We have an article, I think, about that for the news. It's so cool. The production value is insane. And I'm so into this dance. And the dancer, she's amazing. Her 3-tiered apron, her outfit, that orangey. Oh, God, I just loved it. It was like candy. Eye candy, truly.
It was.
Yes. So, yes, Midge gets, she's private demolition and waste management, a musical journey in 3 acts. This is my favorite part of the episode. So I know it's a lot. It's a lot of musical.
It's like 8 minutes.
Yeah. But I loved it so much.
The first showing was amazing, though. It was
it was so good.
It was so good.
I will say I had the exact same thought as Susie when it started, and the little boy gets in bed, and one by one those 4 guys, and she's like, what are they gonna do to that little boy? I was like, thank you, that was creepy as hell.
But before we get there, there's so Susie comes up to Midge, right? Or Nikki hands Midge her costume. Here's her costume. It's got a little hat. I knew you'd like that.
That was precious.
I wanted to start the podcast off by saying that, hey guys, here's your podcast. It's got a little hat. I knew you'd love that.
Loved it. I loved it.
What's an Amy Sherman-Palladino show without countless mentions of hats?
Without amazing hat. You know that she did this whole show just for the hats. Yeah.
Listen, I'm wearing a hat right now, and you guys can't even see it. It's great.
It is.
It's an apple.
Really cute. It's like an apple.
It's an apple hat.
Beret.
It's an apple beret.
Oh my God.
I stole it off my daughter. Well, actually, she stole it off of me.
It's very fitting.
Yes.
Erica always shows up to the podcast with a headdress, like some kind of a when you did your Yellow Jackets live
I needed to
recap, you wore your horns, your antlers.
Oh my gosh.
I need something to kind of just put me into character. Get me out of my...
I love that about you.
Oh, thank you.
I love a good headdress myself. I am a cat, so I have very many pairs of cat ears. Yes, I'm that cat.
Same.
Oh my God.
I'll grab them next time we take a break. Okay, so anyway, so Midge. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say my favorite line was when she was trying on her costume, it comes with a cigar stub. It's still wet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not putting it in my mouth. And then
not without a China shot.
Yeah. Where's your cigar stub? I'm having it dry cleaned. It's a great prop. It says so much about the character. Try it on. Not without a tetanus shot. And then she gives Susie the script. And have you seen the script? What is this? Tears? It's terrible. She's got tears stained script.
Well, because Jerome was worried about them killing his parents if he messed up.
And he should have been a pharmacist. The only thing I wrote about Jerome was poor Jerome. He should have been a pharmacist.
That's exactly what I had written too. Poor Jerome.
He was not okay.
He was not okay. He's not okay in the same way Mike Carr is not okay because of working for fucking Gordon Ford, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And
I love Mike, though.
I know. And so Susie, so Midge is about to go on for her first show, and Susie's like, "Tits up if you got tits in there," because she says something like, "Yeah, this outfit wasn't made for me. It was made for a 200-pound guy who took a shit in it before he took it off the last time." I don't know. It was like, good Lord.
I feel like the vulgarity and like the cursing was so amped up in this episode, but I thought it was fitting. I was like, I think it helped. Like, we understand exactly how Midge is feeling.
Well, Amy Sherman Palladino wrote this one. So, and she has said, she's like, "Oh, I try to, like, at the end of when I'm done writing a script, like, I'll go back and just like add swear words. Like, I'll add fucks and shits just because I want to push it. Just because I want
makes sense.
That level of, that's where we are." And I'm like, you're on my level.
I do love a good fuck. So, you know,
we
think
all.
of that what you will.
Don't we all? Okay, so let's get into Midge's first performance in the garbage show. Kara, you start the convo train here.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start.
You were talking about the little kid saying
yes, I was. This is another one I was watching on the plane. Like, I was trying not to move in my seat and like dance along, and I had a smile on my face the entire time. And I will say, I am a sucker for anything in a musical with prop choreography.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as they put those trash can lids on their feet,
my God, thank you.
Lost my mind. I was like, this is brilliant. I would pay to see this show. Like, it immediately made me think of some of my favorite like musical moments with props. And I'm going to nerd out a little bit.
Please do, because I want to nerd out too.
Bring it on. I can't be the only one always talking about as an actor. As an actor.
So I loved musical theater in high school. That was like, I lost it after high school, going into law school, and we did Beauty and the Beast my senior year. And it was one of the years where we were the first high school in the country to have the rights to do it. And so it was so much pressure. And there's the scene in the tavern for Gaston, and they do, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you've seen it, like the mug cup dance during it, which was the hardest fucking thing to nail.
The giant like, beer steins or whatever they call it.
Yes. Yeah. And
is that the word for it?
Yes.
Yeah. Beer steins. And it was like watching it on Broadway was one of the best things I've ever seen in my entire life. That, and I think of, Fiddler on the Roof.
I was just going to say
bottles
that.
On there.
The bottle dance.
Everything about that. I love Fiddler anyway, but anything Fosse with like, a chair or a hat. And I also think of Grease Lightning in the early 90s where they're doing like with the tires and it's so like close out into the audience. Like, I was having the time of my life on the plane at 6:15 this morning watching this show. But the amount of work and skill that went into those 8 minutes was fantastic. And not to mention like the garbage heap girls.
God.
Okay, we'll get there. Yeah. But I just gotta say, I did notice like on that the garbage can lids on their feet. I'm like, what? Like, I zoned out on that on my second watch, and one of those guys is going so hard he crushes. There's a dent because he like slams his foot into the ground. I'm like, man, you are getting it, boy. Dance like just like he is doing the river dance. Man,
it was so
I can't
good.
stop smiling now.
I know.
Like, all of us are sitting here with grins on our face.
It was beautiful.
If I had to watch this not from the comfort of my own apartment alone, where I could just go, yes, like I was giddy this whole episode, like smiling like a lunatic. Lunatic level.
I
probably looked like a crazy person on the
plane.
God,
but that's okay because you're watching, like these garbage boys dancing with like these trash can lids. It reminded me. Do you guys remember the show Stomp from like the 90s?
Oh yes.
And I was like, this made me think it was like a combination of Stomp.
I saw Newsies, that so many times in New York.
And like Newsies and like Urinetown. Like I was like, yes. I was like, this was wonderful. But I thought it was amazing. And those girls when we get to the girls on the trash heap, it's like how seductive they were. You really could see how good they were when they did the close-ups when Midge was being a jackass.
Yes. Okay. So let's get through this stuff. Okay. Yes, I really died when Susie. What are they going to do to that little boy?
That's so
line.
Funny.
That's like creepy. The thought of it, but best line to delivery. I think we all said that.
Oh yeah. I was like, what the hell? Why are they in his bedroom?
They pop. Your personal trash man can. This little kid is saying his little prayers, and then like 4 creepy men in like
peer over him.
Yeah, they just link up on top of him. Who cleans or what is it? Who cleans out all the evidence? You ain't been spick and span. Your personal trash man can. Like,
I was like, that's some interesting juxtaposition there.
I know, right? There's a couple of lines. I don't know if you guys have favorite lines. I really like the one, feral pets not in your lease. Take it away, boys. Take it away.
That was good.
You know, as somebody who has to pay for my trash removal because I don't live in Philly anymore, I live right outside of it. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of nice because they take everything.
Right?
But you think because it's being backed by Frank and Nikki, like maybe that's kind of the ties into the mob because they take all your...
Oh, yeah.
You know, your...
The mentions of evidence and everything. It was just like, yeah, they're disposing of bodies at that point. Like, that is 100% happening.
Oh, yeah.
They did say medical waste.
Oh, my God. And now it all makes sense why Frank and Nikki are behind the... Of course they would be. Yeah. They're in the business of disposing of...
Brilliant.
Yeah. Yep, because they know where all the bodies. They know where all the bodies are buried.
I think the line. I mean, out of the whole musical, there were a couple of moments that stood out. But at this very initial part in the beginning, the cut to Alex Borstein and Susie's facial expressions, where at first she's like kind of unsure, and then she's like eating the hot dog and like nodding her head and like really getting into it.
She's like shocked and delighted, and she's like looking over her shoulder, like, "Hey guys, look, people, this ain't that bad. This is pretty good. This is pretty good." Yeah, she's so delighted by it.
Gosh, that was so good.
My God.
And obviously Tess. Just
goddess. Yes. Wait. One other thing I gotta mention before we get to Tess. The one line that I really loved was, you'd never know that last night there was a mound of trash as high as an elephant's eye, high enough that the Von Trapp family singers could climb over it to escape the Nazis, and that's pretty high. But now look at it.
Awful.
God, the streets are gleaming. You can see a reflection. Looks like I need a shave.
That was good. And then Rachel Brosnahan's bad acting was fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
Do you know I was just gonna say, I was so pissed off, like all those brilliant, like, you know, ensemble. I'm like, they really couldn't get somebody to fill that role. They really couldn't. Like all the townspeople that they had to get Midge to do her half-assed narrator.
Thank you.
I'm like, look at that, like how great, like the woman who was the waitress, like, I'm like, come on now.
Yes, she was so funny.
Okay, you guys, this was almost my most marvelous moment when the businessman with the briefcase off to conquer the world, and this guy, like, just the way he struts by this, like, across the stage, and then, or a waitress rushing to get you those sunny side up eggs to get you through your day, and she just goes, like, she air humps, and he goes like, aha!
It was so good.
I shrieked out loud. I squealed. That moment made me so fucking delighted. And I didn't think I was like, that's my most marvelous moment. There it is. That fucking businessman and the waitress being like so fucking cheery. And then
that was good.
And then Tess happened. And I was like, I knew it. And then that was my most marvelous moment. Yes. But it was a close second. So let's talk Tess. Go. Yes.
I don't know. I kind of got like almost Mrs. Hannigan energy from it.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I mean, specifically Carol Burnett, Mrs. Hannigan, which makes me
you are
so
right
happy.
On the money. Okay, I had a couple of references come out to me when her set comes out and it, like, the sound changes. You hear this like blood curdling scream. You hear a lot of blood curdling screams in the background, just for no reason. People just Like, and the musical track was reminiscent of like the Wicked Witch of the West entering Munchkin Land when, it's like dun dun and all the Munchkins just scatter and freak out. And also, I was getting Fern Gully vibes. Remember, anyone watch Fern Gully?
Oh,
I know, it's like a fever dream of my childhood when the oil villain of the rainforest is like,
oh my gosh,
who was voiced by Tim Curry.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I think
the one
I'm
and
still
only.
scarred from that.
Scarred.
Like, I can close my eyes and see that perfectly from like a nightmare when I'm
Oh yeah,
6.
that movie feels like a fever dream. I remember when I watched it like as an adult, I was like, I can't believe.
Toxic Love is the name of the song.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
I know. I was gonna
that's
say slime beneath me, slime up above. Ooh, you love my toxic love.
And the way they're whispering and like, that kind of whisper of different like singular words when they said Hoboken.
Okay, wait, I got it. So Tess is singing, we've seen better days. And the ensemble, trash, this life ain't fair, smog, beyond repair, death, you're begging for mercy when you go to Jersey to breathe fresh air, Hoboken.
That was great. I think I laughed out loud on the plane with that one. I was just like, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to contain myself.
And there used to be trees and clear blue seas, but now all the babies are born here with rabies and full goatees. Oh, so tough to raise. We've seen better days. No, I'm not a singer, but I'm going to sing this.
That was pretty damn good, Jade.
That was fantastic, Jade.
It was giving me life. You guys, my cheeks hurt so bad right now.
I know.
Like they did when I was watching the episode. And
it was so good.
She's just like sexual, this commitment laying on this.
Undulating and like writhing in the trash. It was great.
Yes. And the huge mound of garbage that they're on. I mean, massive set. Oh, like on the transition. Before the set closes, did you guys see Tess scrambles off the garbage mound and like you can see.
Oh God, I have to look at that again.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Definitely worth a rewatch. I will tell you when I absolutely did lose it on the plane is when, the old timer comes out with his dead son in his arms and a rod in his head. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening right now? Like that was chef's kiss. Like,
yes.
Midge goes, happy people die every day from trash. Tens of thousands of pounds of garbage accumulate every hour. The average person throws away 2.68 pounds of garbage per day. And that's a really thin person. Like her monotone reads. And then I'm gonna read it, guys. I'm gonna do it. I was like,
please do.
I was like, should I transcribe this and
please,
read it? I'm like,
please.
Just fucking do it, Jade. And this reminds me of, so I do a lot of voiceover, like commercials and stuff where I have to, in a very fast, you can speed it up with editing, but they always want you to just get through it, when you're doing like allergy medication or whatever, this could cause dysentery, hepatitis, diarrhea, you have to say it really fast. So she does, in her monotone voice, she's like reading all of the, what happens when you improperly dispose of garbage. So she goes, mismanaged waste kills up to 1 million people a year globally and can potentially carry diphtheria, dysentery, hepatitis A and B and C and D and E, meningitis, cancer, tetanus, tuberculosis, pneumonia, influenza, syphilis, and assorted blood-borne pathogens, parasitic infections, zoonotic illnesses, and plus there won't be any place to park.
The worst one of them all.
Right. And then the curmudgeon man comes up. I can't hear anymore. I'm convinced. Private demolition and waste management is important. It's important. Like shaking the dead child.
I can't. It was just like, it was so good. And the fact that they kept in, like, it was hepatitis A and B. And I was just like,
and C, and D, and E.
So much funnier. I just, I was sitting there thinking that, like, my dad hates musicals. It is not his thing. Like, my mom and my grandma and I loved them. And so the whole time where I was sitting there dying and loving this, I was like, man, my dad would hate this right now. So I'm curious if there's anybody who loves this show and is not a fan of musicals, how they reacted. I feel like it almost goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
a part of you has to love musicals if you love Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone who loves this show who doesn't love theater or who isn't involved in the. It's
like a musical without the song. Most of
that's
the time.
exactly, Kara.
That's
You gotta
perfect.
stop doing this, babe. You read my non-existent notes. Like I
think
literally
that's
said in my
why
head.
I don't know if you guys feel that way, but maybe I feel a little bit more forgiving with the storytelling because I see it as it's supposed to be a little outrageous. Like obviously, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just happy.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, this show as a whole, even, in those moments when, remember in past seasons, I think it was season 3, when Midge is going to Christopher Street to find a gay bar for Susie.
yeah.
And she just, they play the interesting people living on Christopher Street. And they just her gliding down the street. She does her little twirls, just cause Amy Sherman Palladino wants this whole entire show, like you were just saying. And that's what I'm trying to say is not just this episode, but this show as a whole is a musical without the musical. It's like a scripted musical.
It kind of I don't know if that's entirely a parallel, but Noises Off
Yes.
is one of my favorite plays. And I feel like that kind of cheeky, like wink, wink, theatrical humor.
Those are the kind of plays that I love to go out, that I love to audition for, because I always say this, I'm not a singer. I have a strong dance background, but words are music to me. I'm very rhythmic in my, voiceover. It's like my craft is like the art of the spoken word, like poetry. It's music. I hear the music in every day just speaking. So that's why one of the main reasons why I really love this show is because it just appreciates spoken word
that makes sense.
in such a unique way. You don't see this kind of, this show is so unique. It never before and never again will there be anything like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is why we're here talking about it, soaking up every last bit of the final season, because I'm going to miss it so bad when it's gone. So bad. Please, I hope that in a few years we are talking about the Mrs. Maisel movie. I really hope that they're doing a 4-part Netflix. That would be so
fun.
Yeah, just like they did with Gilmore Girls. I'm like, and the actor Sidney Pollack? No, not Sidney Pollack, who plays Moish.
Oh gosh,
is it Sidney? Gosh. It's not. No, Sidney Pollack is another actor. His last name is Pollack. Whatever. He has said in interviews, he's like, "You're going to be talking about the Mrs. Maisel movie one day." I said it.
Kevin Pollack.
Kevin Pollack. Thank you. Not Sidney Pollack, obviously. Sidney Pollack is an amazing actor as well. But anyway, we're not the only ones who love this. The audience loved it. Susie loves it. She just goes, "All right, Tess." She's like so excited for her sister.
That was so cute.
And so, we were talking about maybe Midge should consider she's lucky. She's so ashamed to be a part of this show. But girl, you're getting paid $200, but today, $2,000. You're in a show that is a very high caliber. I mean, sure, it's about garbage, and sure, it's about disposing of human bodies, probably, but you gotta maybe you should consider yourself lucky that this show is pretty great, man. I'm proud to be the host of this show,
Plus, she had the easiest part in the entire
and she could have ad-libbed and riffed a little bit if it was in good humor, not when she was upset and was just
when she had
on it.
Better attitude.
Yeah. At the very end, she was excited. She put her arms up at the very end note and seemed like she was had a good time.
The audience goes crazy, y'all. The audience is going wild over here. They love it. Yeah. So we'll get to. I want to talk about how Midge pissed me off so badly right now, but we're gonna save it. We're gonna save it for when she.
I had to stop myself.
Yeah,
I was like, "Let's not yet."
Okay, I'm sorry, guys, that I feel like I was just talking a mile a minute, but my excitement overfloweth.
Yep.
And I just was high off of this whole moment. This is going to be, this is going to be a very long podcast because of all that talking that I just did. And I'm sorry, not sorry.
It's worth it. This was a great episode.
It was so.
I'm going to watch the trash can lid dance like multiple times probably when I get home tonight.
Yep. Yeah.